Lots are not synchronized. All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, May 30, 2024, 9 o'clock, Policy and Procedure Committee. Amanda, would you please call the roll?
Ducat, Barron,
Here.
Alt,
Here.
Whitlow,
Here.
Sure,
Yes. Everyone, I believe, has a copy of the agenda. We have a motion to approve. Mr. Ducat, second. Mr. Whitlow. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Public comments. No public. EMA report, Mr. Anderson.
Morning, everybody. There's a copy of my report in front of them. I'll just get some of the bigger highlights. We had a couple incidents this past month. First one being a pretty severe wind incident. It occurred Tuesday 21st into the early hours, May 22nd. We had numerous trees and limbs down countywide. Lots of power outages were reported. I issued a press release following that event. Also over Memorial Day weekend, on that Saturday around 7, a 3-year-old girl was reported missing from a residence in Woodland. The sheriff's office was called, who then in turn notified Woodland Fire to put a search team together. Woodland Fire requested numerous surrounding departments. Also EMA was requested to assist. EMA did assist. We also went with one of my members that has a camera drone. Shortly after we got on scene, which was not that long into the incident, thankfully the girl was located, so we didn't need to deploy personnel or the drone. Pretty much everybody that arrived was released, but thankfully that took place, but we did get a response. This is a hazard mitigation plan. It's still in the process. Next meeting's August 15th. Just let people know this is a long process, and it's not actually expected to be completed until July of next year, but that's been expected from the beginning. County plans, I'm still working on the EOPs. I was really hoping to have them done by this meeting, but after I really get into it, I realize that I really have to put a lot better eyes on it. I've actually delegated some of the sections off to one of my EMA volunteer coordinators, and we'll see where I'll give you an update on it next month. But that really needs to be gone over a lot closer than what I assume hasn't been updated since 2021. Got a couple more little things of training out of the way this month. Been working closely with the training active shooter tabletop exercise. It's now planned for July 10th. I held a meeting in my EOC for all of the department heads and administrators, which agencies will participate in this drill. The drill will actually take place in my EOC as well, and it's going to be centered around an incident that occurs at Watsika High School. Law enforcement, fire, EMS, school staff members, everybody that's listed to be part of that drill. That's going to be a really full-scale, hands-on, full-scale active shooter drill, which I'm in the planning stages of, and hopefully that'll occur sometime in August or September. We've gone to quarterly meetings now for the LEPC, the way they had done in the past. Now that all the committee assignments and everything were set up, we're going to give people a chance to get some work done through committee. So the next actual LEPC meeting won't be scheduled until August. I went to the Iroquois County Amateur Radio Club meeting on the 23rd. We discussed working together at the Iroquois County Fair, having adjoining tables as we've done in the past. Because I have a lot of members that are part of my EMA group from the Amateur Radio Club. It'll make things a lot easier for all of us. We did not have an EMA volunteer meeting this May. Schedule another one in June. We're going to discuss the fair again, where EMA will be represented. I skipped over again, encouraging everybody to work on the NIMS programs. I have finally put together an email. I'll send that out here probably just prior to the full county board meeting. Give people a little more explanation on what the purpose is, what each of the classes are. And I've given it more of a priority thing for one very simple classes that if you don't take any of the other ones, please take that one. It'll all be explained in the email. Emergency notification network. We have been paying an organization known as HyperReach. For many years, we pay $6,300 a year that comes out of my EMA budget. It is a service available to the public at no charge, but the public does have to opt in to receive this information. It comes over cell phone, it comes over your house phone, it comes over email. However you choose to receive the information, once you've opted in, it comes in. One of the benefits of it is if the National Weather Service issues a warning, we can program how we want it to do watches and all that, but if you start overburdening it, people will opt out. So I've left it on to just warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings within the county that I have nothing, no input needed for me. HyperReach automatically takes the National Weather Service's warnings and pushes those out through that network. But it also gives me the ability from EMA to make notifications over the same network for anything else. You know, for instance, if we have a hazardous materials incident in a specific area of the county and we need to do emergency evacuations, I can single out those areas either using a zip code, addresses, or drawing a polygram on a map if I needed to, and send them specifically to the areas that I designate. So it's an important thing for people to sign up for. Again, it's free. I'm making a full court press on getting this information out. I started with my press release on the wind event, including some of that information, and just with that tiny little bit, I've added over 40 subscribers to that already. So going into the fair, I plan on making that the big thing for EMA is having at least 3 forms of notification available to you for any weather event, which the Weather Service, of course, recommends. So, and then again, social media, pushing out all the weather watches, warnings, forecasts, and keep adding people to our Facebook page continuously. Those numbers keep going up, which is encouraging. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Yes, you have the wrong date on your report.
I do. May 30th.
My date says May 2nd.
What does your page say, Mason?
Mine says the
Mine says the 2nd.
bottom, page 2.
Well, let's see. Oh, I didn't correct the signature line on that one. Forgive me. It's on the top of the report. You're correct. Sorry, sir. I will make a correction to that before I email it. I'm glad that I didn't email them already. Yes, sorry about that.
You can come back May 2nd if you like it.
Next year, sure.
I didn't say that.
Okay, we'll move on to the committee chair reports and begin with Mr. Barron from the committee.
Get an update on the morgue and the regular reports, I guess. Can you speak up? I don't have hard to hear. Said we'll get a report on the morgue and take regular reports.
Grand Street project as well.
If there's anything to update, nobody's told me anything that's being updated, so it's probably it'll be on the agenda.
We should be ready to begin work on that. That's an intergovernmental agreement at the last board meeting, and I signed that, and now the city has signed it, so.
Okay.
And it's notified the contractor to begin work. Should be ready to go. I don't know, we don't have a date when they're gonna.
They may pull it today.
Well, hopefully they'll let us know before. Okay, Mr. Duquette, Health and Tax and Zoning.
Health should be normal reports. I just heard him on the radio today talking about the I-plan. He's trying to push that out hard to get information for everybody. And then on tax, Mia's going to have normal reports with Julie. We're still going to be working on the ordinance. And then since we've hired Scott Taberitsky, I apologize, Amanda. I can't think of how to say his last name. We'll be figuring out what to do to talk with him and get somebody appointed to get a hold of him immediately to move forward to make sure that we have him locked in to oversee all our wind, solar, and battery storage take a look at our ordinances, but hopefully the ordinances will be mostly from us.
So we don't have the exact details of how we're gonna work with Scott yet. Okay, Mr. Whitlow, judicial.
Yeah, important things highlighted here. The AED was purchased for the second floor, so we got AED on both floors now. There's also Narcon boxes in each floor, which is another good thing. 111 pre-trial releases, detention releases already this year, and still, that's another story. Lisa's got 2 computers from grant funding also, and the usual reports. That's all I have.
Okay. Finance, Mr. Barnes.
He hasn't told me anything specific, but I imagine people need to start looking at their budgets for next year since we're coming up on that.
Right, I don't know what, have any update on when we'll get the audit reports either, but that's at least a month away. Okay, highway, Mr. Auld.
I understand that we don't have anything new or exciting to work on this month. We have the normal claims of this season of the year, I understand. That's about all I'm doing out at this time.
All right, we'll move on to chairman comments. Anything I really want to say is I have here printed out from the UCCI. Many of you may have already seen this. It's what they call an end of the session reports from the General Assembly. Interesting to look at some of the crazy legislation that was passed and the money that we're spending on different things like migrant funding, $182 million. My ancestors migrated here, they didn't get any $182 million. I don't know if there's anybody in this room that falls under that category. Anyway, if anybody's interested in looking at this, why it's up here. Get one of the meetings over. That's all I've got at the moment. Move along to discussion and action on a resolution to allow service credit for military leave prior to participation. Something that our sheriff is introducing, so if you would come forward and talk to us about it, I'd appreciate it.
It was brought to my attention that the county didn't have
Come over here, we won't bite you.
on camera still. It was brought to my attention that the county didn't offer this. We have, I think, three or four people in the sheriff's office, either corrections or patrol, that could benefit from this. I think from a recruiting and retention standpoint, it's definitely a good option. It's a no-cost option to the county. So what would happen is if a prior service member or somebody that served while they were deputy or corrections, served in the military, they're able to buy that time back and apply that to their IMRF. So I believe it's up to 4 years. So what that would mean is a guy works 26 years, he has 4 years military time that he's bought back, his portion, the county's portion, and he's able to retire at 26 years, but have 30 years of service credit. So it would be a benefit to the county and the employees.
So this means when you say deputies and so forth, Mr. Barnes was a deputy and he decided he wanted to go in the military for 4 years or 6 years or whatever, and then he comes back and wants to become a deputy again, he can use that time.
Now, if he was in the Guard, say he was in the Guard and he got activated, I believe at that time the IMRF contributions stop. So he would be able to purchase those years of service.
It's not worth he voluntarily enlisted.
Correct. Or if prior to becoming a deputy, Mr. Barron served in the military for 4 years, he would be able to buy that time back. I did the same thing, buying my IMRF time from corrections and enrolled that into SLEP. So that was a cost to me, not to the county. So, but it got me 2 years and 8 months more on my SLEP as opposed to the IMRF.
When we talk about buying it back, how much money are we talking about?
Well, it depends on the person, depends on the years of service and how long that's been. When I first checked into mine, the 2 years and 8 months, in 2005, I believe it was around 6,000 or 7,000. By the time I was able to buy it back, my kids had gotten older, it was around 16,000. So
That's quite a bit of money.
it is. And there's some people that they would not opt to do that just because of the financial burden it would take on them. But
And I guess that's part of where I'm going at is, how likely is it gonna be that some of the deputies are gonna do this?
I've got one deputy that said he probably would. Another 2 deputies said they checked into it and they think it was quite expensive, so they may not. But they're gonna check into it again if this does pass. So,
Is it an all or nothing? So say they had 4 years of service, could they only buy 2 of it, because that's all they can afford?
yeah, you can buy up to 4 years.
Will our administration handle any of that?
Amanda probably would be the one handling that, because she's our IMRF representative.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments? We can entertain a motion to either approve it or not.
I make a motion to approve. To give them their options.
Second by Whitlow. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ducat,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Alt,
Yes.
Whitlow,
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay,
For all that, please, right?
next is a discussion on the paid leave, All Workers Act. We've had this on the agenda for, I guess, 3 or 4 months now because of not being for real clear on what it was all gonna do and all that. Some of the supposed clarification supposed to be coming forward from Springfield. So I believe everybody was sent a copy of it by Joe yesterday. And, if anybody needs to look at it, we'll probably pass it around or whatever. Anybody care to
See if you can see it yet.
see what it's all about?
No, didn't see it.
Can you give us a quick rundown on everything, Joe?
Excuse me. So we started this back a few months ago, and me and I sat down and kind of went through what would be the, most cost effective and easiest way to abide by this new policy. So what we kind of came up with was revising the vacation policy to be a paid leave policy. And the difference is that when an employee takes paid leave, they are not required to provide the employer with any reason for taking the paid leave. Also, in the policy portion, paid leave needs to accrue on the commencement of their employment or the effective date of LAWA, which is what they call paid leave. And employees will begin using, or may begin using them 90 days following the commencement of their employment. So as of right now, they don't get vacation time until after a year of service. Well, now it would be starting to accrue the first day they got hired, but they still wouldn't be able to use it until 90 days after. So the way it would work is that full-time employees, would receive paid leave based off of their first year of employment to year one, which is 40 working hours. And then after year 1 through 7, 10 working days. After year 7 through 14, 15 working days. And after year 14 and beyond is 20 working days. The last 3 of those are already in our policy, as is the first. Again, the only difference is that it changes to their first day of employment that they start accruing. However, this now includes hourly, part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees. And per the state, they will receive 1 hour of paid leave for every 40 hours worked in a 12-month period, up to a maximum of 40 hours. And that too begins on their first day of employment. We do have piecework employees such as bailiffs and animal control officers. And how that works is that the employees are considered part-time, but their work hours shall be determined by date of work. So to give you an example, I'm gonna use Linda, animal control warden. She gets to call out today for an investigation, she gets $55. So that would be 1 hour of time that she would accrue. And if she were to get a second call today to pick up an animal, it doesn't matter, she still only gets 1 day. So no matter how many calls in the day she goes out on, she'll get 1 hour. Same thing for the bailiffs, they work 1 day, they earn 1 hour. What else is on here? So the other change that they made is that the paid leave can be used in as small of 2 hours unless an employee's scheduled workday is less than 2 hours. And then if it's not taken within 12 months of the award date, it may be carried over with the approval of the department head. They did add in that the employer may require employees to provide 7 calendar days notice to take paid leave. However, if they need to take it and it's unforeseeable, the employee must provide notice as soon as possible. An employer can deny the request to use paid leave if granting that leave would significantly impact business operations. So if staffing would fall to a minimum level, if emergency circumstances exist requiring employee attendance, or if an absence would hamper employer's ability to meet the critical workflow obligations. When the employee is separated from employment, just like with our current policy with vacation, they do get paid out for that. Let's see, paid leave. Also, let's see here, under responsibility, cannot retaliate against any employee because the employee exercises rights or attempts to exercise rights under BLAWA. That was added in, and I think that was about it. I have gotten verification from Jim Devine that, the policy that was presented to you through email is adequate for our handbook, for his words.
So this includes every employee in the county except county board members, is that correct?
I have yet to get a clear answer on county board members.
Is that question or the answer to that question something that should be included in our policy and procedure? And, in this policy that we're talking about adopting?
That would be up to the committee.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that it should not, but I can certainly see where there's a gray area there, and I can see where some, in the future, some I hesitate to use the word well-meaning, but I guess maybe that's appropriate. A well-meaning county board member might want to claim that. too.
So would, if it was given to the county board members, would they be basically accrued the same as, like animal
He's
control?
referred.
So it would be like 1 hour per day that they're here,
If that's what you guys choose to do, but yeah.
which would amount to 48 hours max probably in a year, which would be,
40 hours max is what the
well,
policy.
no.
Do you have to have an hourly rate for county board members?
We're here. If you're on 4 committees, 12 months, that's only 48 hours that would accrue time, so you would have 1 hour and a little bit is all that you would ever accrue in a year's time anyway, so it's not worth even accruing the time. So I would say write it that we're exempt.
That's fine with me. I don't know if that contradicts the state law either. I think there's an area there that needs some clarification. One possibility is to get an attorney general's opinion. I don't know if the state's attorney is interested in doing that or not. But I think it's an interesting question.
So
I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I don't think that elected or appointed officials, because they don't currently have the option of accruing vacation time, would apply with this. And I thought at one meeting, and I could be wrong because it's been a long time ago since Jim was at the meeting and he gave some comments on this policy that we wouldn't include them, but I'm trying to, yeah. So I would think it would not affect elected officials or any county board members.
Or not.
They don't
County board
accrue,
members.
yeah, they don't accrue time. Since they're elected. Trying to work.
So from what the attorney has said, do we even need to say anything about it?
He said that the policy that I emailed everyone was adequate enough for our handbook, and it's the response that I got. Actually, the response that I got was actually fine. It can. Says, in looking at the administrative code as it pertains to the county's proposed policy, I have a couple of recommended changes. On page 1, it was stated March 30th, and it should be March 31st, which I changed that before I emailed it to you. And then also on page 2, it can be carried over to the next 12-month period. I think there was a typo in there, and I fixed that too. So yours is fixed per those 2 suggestions. He said, otherwise, the whole gobbledygook of information looks accurate enough for the county's policy book. Please let me know if you have any other questions.
It's a legalese technology.
I guess the question then is, should there be a statement in the policy who is excluded or who is included?
We don't currently have in the policy that, it's not including those persons, but if you want to include it, that would be up to you.
Approve the policy Make a motion to do that with the addition of the, what you just were saying.
And next one is just to make a motion to approve the policy and then exclude county board members and elected officials.
Second that. Second.
There a certain place in which you want that inserted in the policy?
I think it's gonna make a big difference.
Again, in the end, if there's no specific.
I would just, yeah, just at the end. Would you want to be in it? Would you like to give a preference?
I think they write it, they just need to know what you want.
I just think either beginning or the end don't make a difference when it's in there. Just make sure it's in there.
The procedure, and then you got paragraph B, put this paragraph B.
The end of it's in.
Where are you putting?
I think it makes sense to be under policy where it talks about hourly, part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees. Could add a sentence stating, like you said, excluding appointed or elected officials, or you could list out county board members. But I think you're just going along with the policy, where it lists out part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees. I don't know that it makes sense under the procedure, because that just talks about how you're maintaining the records. It doesn't talk anything about the employees that are covered. But that's my
That'll work.
sense of it.
Fine with me, just so it's in there, I think is what we're really interested in. Everybody sound good to them? Okay, there's no further questions, and then I can call the roll.
Dugat.
Yep.
Barons.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, now we'll move on to continue our discussion and review of the code manual. Today we have Mr. Raymond with us from one of the departments, so we're gonna go to that section, which is section number 12. Communications. Things that most people struggle with. Begin with Article 2, the emergency telephone system. Section 12-40. Says the county emergency telephone system board is hereby established. The board will consist of 12 members, all of whom shall be appointed on the basis of their ability and experience pursuant to 50 ILCS 750-15. Copy of the statute, which says it's up to the county to determine how many members should be on the board. Right now there's 5.
6.
We do that.
It's been 6 before I started. I was encouraging at least at one point up to 7. So we had that extra number for the purposes of majority when voting. And it's been 6 for quite some.
Okay, so if you suggest you
It's
want to
seven
go,
on the counting one, I counted 5.
So my question is, if you want to go up to 7, why not down to 5?
Well, we've already have, so purposefully within it, we do need to have a member at large, we have to have a county board person on there. And then that leaves us 1 for police, fire, and or EMS. That would be a total of 5. Right now, we've got 4 police, fire, EMS professionals, and then we have our member at large and our county board person.
We have a joint system here, and the statute requires that we have somebody from Watsika, who's the other member of the joint.
And that particular individual is also part of our police in this
I
particular
understand
situation.
that, but
currently.
we need to note that we need to have somebody from Watsika represented on that board.
We can certainly add that into this. It's something that we're already doing, so this is something I think we can certainly maintain.
Listed in the end of session report that I alluded to earlier this morning is a bill, I haven't read the bill, but if I understand the synopsis of it correctly, it encourages the participation of the sheriff on that board. So if we want to go to 7, we can include the sheriff.
I've been encouraging him to attend. And he has several times, right, Sheriff?
I've been there, I think, twice.
A couple of times. Yes, a good handful.
Yeah.
In any event, the number of people that's on the board is up to the county board to decide. It can be up to 12. What we have in our code book right now says 12. We haven't done that for some time. In my view, what we should say there is that it should be a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 12. That way, if situations or requirements change, we have the flexibility to cover within that and still be in compliance with the state statute.
That would be appropriate in my opinion.
So if that's agreeable to everyone, we can.
Is the maximum 12 written in stone, or could it be 13 or anything?
I think the state statute says a maximum of 12.
What?
I believe the state statute says 12.
All right.
The
You have a
ETS Act
copy?
does say, does
I
say
just
12.
passed out to
I
staff.
think there was more than 12 when we had a change.
There was 12 when I was on that board a number of years ago. And quite honestly, I didn't think that it worked very well having that many on the board. I think that was one of the reasons we went to 5 or what Eric claims is 6. I think a board operates more efficiently with having 12 on there is just too many.
By the time you reach a maximum of 12, it doesn't necessarily become unmanageable, but it definitely gets close to the same size as the Iroquois County Board. And that's an example of how many opinions you have can sometimes detract from the greater good.
The difference being that the Iroquois County Board has a number of committees that have to be formulated from it.
Agreed.
The ETSB does not. If everybody is in agreement or doesn't have any objection, we can change the wording to say that the board shall consist of a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 12 members. Moving along, section 12-41, compensation says that the members reserve without compensation, but shall be reimbursed for their actual and necessary expenses. I believe that's what's done at the present time, so I don't think there's any need to change that. Section 12-42 says appointment. It says members of the Emergency Telephone System Board shall be appointed by the chairperson of the county board. Said members shall serve for staggered 3-year terms. Terms of office shall begin on January 1 of each year. That's the way we're doing it right now.
That is the way that we're doing it right now.
And it's my opinion that this is the best way to do it. We need to recognize that it differs from other appointments in that it does not require the advice and consent of the county board. But we've had at least one situation in my time where we had some resignations that we left the department bare, so to speak, no supervision, no nothing. So in order to go through the process of appointing somebody, then having the county board to do it, would require a special county board meeting, which could be as much as 10 days interval until it actually got done. And during that time, there'd be no supervision in that department, nobody putting together time schedules and whatever other things, need to be done. So in my view, the way this is set up, even though it does differ, I think it's the best way to do it. So, unless somebody objects, I think we'll leave this the way it is. Section 12-43, powers and duties. Powers and duties of the Emergency Telephone Board System shall include the following: planning a 911 system, coordinating and supervising the implementation, upgrading, or maintenance of the system, including the establishment of equipment specifications and coding system. Next page, it says receiving monies from a surcharge imposed under the Act and from any other source for deposit into the Emergency Telephone System Fund. Authorizing all disbursements from the fund. 5, hiring on a temporary basis any staff necessary for the implementation or upgrade of the system. That one we need to remove on a temporary basis. The statute that I passed around has that removed. That was one of the changes that was made recently in the statute, and it doesn't make sense to hire somebody on a temporary basis.
I believe this was also already approved by the Iroquois County Board. This would have been a couple of years ago.
We're talking about what's in the code book.
Right. But that particular line item was already discussed by the Iroquois County Board. I believe there was an amendment to that with the expectation of striking that language.
Never made it into the book.
It never made it in the book, but it was approved language. I'll have to.
Today, we're talking about what's in the book.
Right. So it's something that needs to be updated because it's already been approved language.
Right. Well, so we're gonna remove temporary basis.
To me, that would apply, it says hiring on a temporary basis, any staff necessary for implementation or upgrade of the system. So that would be hiring a contractor, I would say, to put in the equipment needed to upgrade it. And if you're not hiring them on a temporary basis, or are you just not considering them hired?
A contractor would not be staff.
They're not a staff, they're hired installers.
Okay.
I mean, the only person that the ETS board can hire, which is what we're talking about, what they can do is Mr. Raymond's position. Not the telecommunicators and stuff, that's up to Mr. Raymond. But Mr. Raymond is considered to be staff.
Interim can be the sheriff if we're looking for a new director. Because that's what happened the last time we were looking for a director.
But that was done with the action of yourself and the
but
other
I
members
understand.
that appointed to the board right away. Those appointments were done out at the highway department. You remember, right after the highway meeting, we had another meeting out there. order to get that situation taken care of. And yes, the sheriff agreed to temporarily take over. Okay, number 6, such other powers and duties consistent with the act, which are talking about the state statute, as the county board may grant by ordinance. And then P, specific duties regarding the surcharge. All monies received pursuant to the surcharge shall be deposited into an emergency telephone system fund. The treasurer county shall be and is hereby designated custodian of the fund. All interest accruing on the fund remains in the fund. No expenditures may be made from such fund by the custodian except upon the direction of the emergency telephone system board by resolution passed by a majority of all members of the board. My question on that is, are you adopting a resolution every time you spend money?
Specifically, no, it's not a resolution. We utilize the same claims process that is done by the Iroquois County Board, except for it comes from the Emergency Telephone System Board funds.
Maybe the words by resolution should be removed.
When you're paying the bills, if you have 3 there, which is a quorum, and only 2 vote for it, that's not a majority of the whole board. How do you do that?
Well, in the case of the Emergency Telephone System Board, since there's currently 6 appointments, 4 would be a quorum. So we would have to have the majority. So in this case, it would be 4 total votes. If it was 3 to 1, then the motion would fail. So the bill claims would be paid for at that point. I would say that would be appropriate to remove that language.
In the last sentence, expenditures may be made only to pay for the costs associated with the items set out in section 12-71. Guess we'll get there in a minute, but I don't see any problem. Section 12-44, countywide addressing format. These are just examples of the type of addresses that need to be put together by the board, be used by the telecommunicators and so forth, and residents of the county. And so if somebody calls in, they have to communicate where they are. You have an address similar to what's shown here so that it can identify your location. These are just examples of what those would look like. I think that's pretty good the way it is. Section 12-62 says a surcharge per month per in-service connection is hereinafter defined and as on file in the county clerk and recorder's office is here imposed upon all telephone subscribers passed through telecommunication carriers engaged, so forth and so on. What this paragraph is saying is something that if you see at the bottom of it, it refers to the 1982 code of ordinances from 1994. I believe this is before the state took charge of the surcharge. So really, the surcharge that's imposed is something that's done per state statute. As simple as that. We don't have a peep to say about it.
At present.
So my suggestion is that entire paragraph should be revised and maybe just say a surcharge as per state statute. And the rest of it is left out. Say, per in-service connection, I guess, probably have to include that, identify that every telephone is gonna receive a surcharge. Section 12-63 definitions. Not gonna read all that, but the question I have is, do we need that? We're not the one that's imposing the surcharge or any of that sort of thing. Do we need those definitions?
I believe the ETS Act already has a section for definitions. It'd probably be appropriate to, just as you did with proposed, reference the ETS Act.
That's fine, I don't have a problem with that. It probably makes a lot of sense to do that, so the same wording can be used there. Section 12-64, certified list of exempt network connections. County clerk and recorder shall provide any telecommunication carrier subject to the surcharge with a certified list. Those network connections assigned to the county to be exempt from imposition of the surcharge. Certified list may be revised by the county on 60 days prior written notice provided to the telecommunication carrier. This is something we're doing now.
No. I'm like, that's news to me.
Now, this is in conjunction with surcharge, so this would also be in the ETS Act. So I would make reference to that language.
Well, no, just a minute. Are the telephones that we have here at the county subject to the surcharge or not?
Yes.
They are subject to the surcharge?
They are subject to surcharge.
Well, then we don't need this at all. It says that this is exempt. If we're not exempt, we shouldn't have anything then put in there, should we?
I mean, if there is any exemptions whatsoever, that would be handled underneath the ETS Act at the state level, and the Illinois State Police, who receives, in conjunction with the comptroller and other offices, would be the ones to make any adjustments or exceptions to that.
They have to go by the state statute, do they not?
Correct.
State statute allow exemptions?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to double check, but I believe there are some specific examples and exceptions, but very, very
I read through the statute last evening when I prepared it, but I don't remember specifically seeing that, but I didn't memorize every line that's in there.
I've got the same challenge.
To me, if we're not exempt, I just don't know that we should have this in here.
I mean, if we do strike it, I mean, strike it all out of it. If there is any exemptions that's ever put in there at the state level regardless, we'd have to follow that.
You know, I mean, you could make an argument that since we're a government body, why are we being taxed?
This is true.
We are.
There's other state surcharges and taxes that we have to go through to regardless of where we're at, what office it is. I mean, if you go to a gas pump, you pay taxes there too. For example. I mean, to get back to your original question,
I would say as far as going to the gas pump and paying taxes, I can understand that because we're using the roads the same as everyone else is. So I mean, that's more of the user tax. But it's not, if we're not exempt, my view, it shouldn't be in here, but whatever the committee wants to do, it's fine with me.
I'm in line with your recommendation to remove it.
we don't want it in there, we just take it out and put it reserved. Or like we have from other places where things have been taken out. Make sense? Take it out? Okay. Same thing applies to section 12-65, data and position. It says the surcharge shall be imposed on the first day of the month following the expiration of 90 days from the date the county clerk and recorder certifies to the individual telecommunication carriers. We're not doing that. I think that should be removed too.
We're not collecting on the next ones, we may go into that.
Section 12-66, recovery of accounting and collection charge. I mean, that's covered by the state statute. I mean, they remit that money directly to the state. We get back whatever the state thinks they're gonna give us. It's not the whole amount. We can do that one the same as we did with 12-62.
For state statute.
Well, that 67 would be the same thing, payment, they're not paying us, the carriers are not paying us, they pay the state. State statute ever changes, if you say per state statute, it covers it anyway. Maybe that's the easy way out, I mean, that's the way we're operating, and that's what we want to do.
Not by choice.
I wish we could figure out what the surcharge should be. Yeah. Submission of report 12-68. Simultaneously with the remittance described in section 12-67, each telecommunication carrier shall make a return to the county treasurer for the period to which the remittance applies. Money is coming from the state, so this again is not. I think that whole thing should be taken out and just sort of reserved in that section. No reporting done. 12-68. Excuse me, 12-69. Penalties and mistaken payments credit. We have no idea whether the surcharge money we get is correct or not. Just get what they send us. Is that correct?
That's the essentials of it. They have yet to release the formula to us to be able to understand the dollars and cents that goes into it, who's taking what out of the kitty, and what comes out to us. There's certain dollars amounts that go to grant funding, there's certain dollar amounts that go to the propping up of the state system in general. And then the remaining funds get distributed out to the 911 centers or the emergency telephone system boards.
Some of that money go to support the 911 advisory board's expenses too.
How they get their fundage, if anything is applicable in there, I don't have any information on that today.
Anyway, that's, again, I think that section should just say reserved, taking that out completely. Section 12-70 is the same thing. There's no action to recover any amount of surcharge due under the provisions of this division shall be commenced more than 3 years after the due date of such amount. From getting money from the state. 12-71, that's what before when we were back earlier, we said what monies the ETS board can spend, so there we go. All monies received pursuant to surcharge shall be deposited into an emergency phone system fund. Treasurer of the county shall be and is hereby designated as the custodian of the fund. All interest accruing in the fund remains in the fund. All expenditures may be made from such fund by the custodian except upon the direction of the emergency telephone system board by resolution. So we should take out by resolution. Passed by a majority of all members of the board. That addresses the question that Mr. Behrens asked earlier as to how many people have to vote in order for it to be passed. Passed by a majority of all members of the board, not just a quorum. Is that satisfactory?
That's what's in the other part too,
I mean, that's still good.
if that's what they want to do.
Well,
It's what we are doing today.
Is it working okay?
expenditures may be made only to pay for the costs associated with the following. Design an emergency telephone system, including of an additional master street address guide database and update maintenance thereof. The repayment of any monies advanced for the implementation of the system. The charge for automatic number identification and automatic location identification, equipment maintenance, replacement, and update thereof. Non-recurring charges related to the installation of the emergency telephone system and the ongoing network charges. Other products and services necessary for the implementation, upgrade, and maintenance of the system, and any other purpose related to the operation of the system, including costs attributable directly to the construction, leasing, maintenance of any building or facilities, or costs of personnel attributed directly to the operation of the system. That's the part that says that some of that money can be used where they transfer over to the county to pay for the salaries of the telecommunicators. Costs attributable directly to the operation of an emergency telephone system do not include the costs of public safety agency personnel who are and equipment that is dispatched in response to an emergency call. The County Emergency Telephone System Board is hereby authorized and empowered to borrow and repay funds for purposes directly attributable to the construction, leasing, or maintenance of any buildings or facilities attributable directly to the operation or implementation of the emergency telephone system. Okay. What is this that you got here, Eric?
These are other suggestions that we need to add into the ETSB's powers. At present, there's a few projects that have been already approved, and right now we can utilize surcharge funds for them. However, the ETSB is wanting the ability to, number one, enter into intergovernmental agreements. And then part of that is also the ability to recoup the surcharge funds that for approved expenses. So this would be something separate outside of the code book, but would also eventually be implemented into the code book. This is suggested language. We can modify this, and then once everybody's happy with that language, I would suggest that you put it in front of Jim Devine to make sure that he has no other suggestions of language that should be there.
Okay, let's go back to the intergovernmental agreements. What are these agreements about? What are they doing?
So for example, in this one instance that I'm speaking to is we purchased a program called I Am Responding. We purchased this countywide for those fire and police departments that wanted to join in. It was a total of 19 total departments. Well, without the ability to, number one, enter an agreement that they would be able to repay that and the specific amounts, that's where the intergovernmental agreement would be. So before any purchases were to happen, we would have that agreement already signed and documented. And then afterwards, that's where the invoicing portion of this would come from.
Are you saying that that process is being held up right now because this isn't in the code book?
It's nowhere in any language of powers within the Emergency Telephone System Board.
So you're saying it's being held up? You can't do it?
For lack of better words, yes.
You still plan on having, this come in front of the county board to get approved?
That's where all of this has to come.
I just want to make sure that.
Once it's approved and in the county code book, or once it's approved at all by the Iroquois County Board, then the ETSB has the least, at the minimum, the ability to pursue these.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just gonna be the ETSB doing their government agreements and not including the county board.
You're talking about two different things.
Okay.
He's saying about these changes coming before the board. I don't know if they do an intergovernmental agreement.
Right.
That has to be verified by the county board. That's
Right.
not what this says.
I know.
I think that's a question that perhaps Mr. Devine might want to rule on. I understand your point, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with it, but for example, the health department has the power to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the county.
Okay.
They do that on occasion. They have agreements with the hospital, which is not an intergovernmental agreement, but they have other similar things.
I did ask State's Attorney Devine if he had an opinion if an MOU would be any different than a intergovernmental agreement. His answer was in the essentials of really it's no different. It's still an agreement at the end of the day, so it would still need approval at some point. If the ETSB didn't have that, then it would be the Iroquois County Board to enter into that agreement. So that's what this is really stemming from, since there's no ability for the ETSB to actually enter into an intergovernmental agreement as it states today. That's why we're asking for this to be able to be completed now that we're updating the code book.
I guess in certain instances, such as the one you're describing, it probably is a good idea and we're fine. But the question becomes, should there be some type of limitation as to what the subject or the nature of these agreements could encompass? In other words, it's not just an open-ended thing necessarily.
So right now, the agreement that you're looking at could be approved by the county board, that would take care of it.
If you wanted to place it that restricted, yeah, you could do that in that fashion, where the ETSB would draft the language, give it to the Iroquois County Board for approval. Doing that could have its potential to be a couple of months in the making, depending on where it goes. So for example, I will give a report to the Judicial and Public Safety Committee, but in many circumstances, the ETSB meets the day before that meeting, which we can't put it as an agenda item on Judicial and Public Safety because they meet on the following day, so that's less than 48 or less than 24 hours.
I think kind of been the policy in a lot of meetings I've been, that if someone brings it up as a part of their report, it can be done. Does that sound correct for you?
If any action's gonna be taken, there would have to be something separate on the, like, the committee couldn't move forward with it, there would have to be something separate on the agenda that says like discussion and action on whatever.
So the committee could maybe recommend.
Yes.
Or
I'm going to be asking you guys to do that.
The answer really is so that if he knows in advance that it's gonna be considered by the ETS board, he can ask that it be put on the agenda for the judicial committee, and then if the ETS board does not take action, they can just skip it when it comes on to their agenda.
Yeah, that's,
the best way to do it. Put all those things on an agenda doesn't mean you have to take any action.
no action is an action.
But I'm just saying about if it's an open-ended authority to do, there should be some restriction or whatever.
and perhaps when we send this to State's Attorney Devine, he may have a suggestion of language that would assist in this particular conversation. So this way, it's still restrictive enough to allow the ETSB to do what it needs, but the Iroquois County Board doesn't necessarily have to sit over top of the entire process.
We can send this over to him, and we can consider, if they're not done with this book today, so, you know. We can send this over to him with these comments that we're making, and then we can consider it next month to try and finalize it. The other part down below about sending invoices out, what's that all about?
This is also, one thing is kind of leading into the other with the ability to enter into these intergovernmental agreements. So in the case of the project where we're talking about this I am responding code, some of the board members have felt that this would be appropriate for us to recoup funds. So we would have the ability to go out to multiple departments, and in the interest of cost savings for everybody, the ETSB would be able to take over, for lack of better words, a master contract, which would in turn create cost savings to all of the departments that would be interested in becoming part of it. So, for example, if something was going to cost $10,000, but by getting a cost discount because of multiple departments, it might be $6,000. That $4,000 savings would be presented across the board, but it would be the ETSB's surcharge funds. So they'd still have appropriate use of those funds, but be able to continue to, in this case, get a refund back on those services. So those other departments would still essentially be paying, they'd just be getting the cost savings.
Again, I think that's probably something that may make some sense in that specific instance that you're talking about. But as you know, right now, we're trying to recoup funds from these departments to help offset the costs of the telecommunicators themselves. So I'm wondering if this might create confusion or case of some, we already have at least, we have one denier and a lot of grumblers about the process that we're engaged in right now.
That unfortunately, we're never gonna, I don't think we're ever gonna get away with that particular observation from some of these departments. The plan would be in these intergovernmental agreements and or invoices, it would be very specifically designed to, this is for the service of. Unfortunately, most of our departments kind of see the ETSB in Iroquois County as one and the same when we're talking about our dispatch fees. Many of the department's trustees, chiefs, and everybody come to me to ask a whole bunch of questions, and I have to explain how the budget works, and who's actually in charge of the billing of that. And it's the same every single year. It's the same set of individuals. So is there a very real chance that we could have some blending in that? Yes. It's still going to be an explanation. The point of having an intergovernmental agreement is going to be very specifically for a specific service. And then the invoicing, again, would be for a specific service. The ETSB cannot bill for dispatch fees. That's been hit very, very hard. There's a specific set of individuals that have done they've had a lot of comments,
Well aware of all that.
as you should.
Yeah.
So this would not be the same as
Well, I'm just,
that, but you
you
are
know,
correct in
we
recognizing.
need to have this discussion so we understand what's what and what isn't. So, I guess if everybody agrees, we'll send this over to Mr. Devine and see what we can do to refine it a little bit or whatever, and make sure he's on board with it. So then we can take it up next month. But this would be something that would be attached into their section 12-71, which is the powers of the board, right?
I feel that would be the best place. I think we can also ask Mr. Devine if he's got any other suggestions where he would like to see it. If we're going to be asking a question, might as well include that.
12-43 is the one that really defines the powers and duties of the board, so maybe that's where it should go. Okay, let's see if we can finish this up here. Division 4, posting of a 911 emergency telephone service address. Section 12-88, existing structures. It shall be the duty of the owner, occupant, or person in charge of any dwelling or building to which a 911 emergency telephone service system address has been assigned to affix said address to the structure if visible from the road, or to a mailbox or post if not visible from the road in such a way that the address can be clearly seen from the roadway and identifies the address structure. Is this correct? This is the way we're doing it?
This is the way we are doing it.
Everybody has a number on their house or wherever?
Supposed to, and many times, whenever they're requesting 911 addresses, especially in our rural areas, they're asking me and or the zoning and planning offices, back here can attest to. How do I get a 911 sign? Who do I go to? So many of those homeowners are already fully aware that they need to address them.
Or do they go together?
There are multiple opportunities via private entities that they can purchase those signs from.
Section B here, it shall be the duty of such owner, occupant, or person in charge thereupon fixing the newly assigned address to remove any different numerals and or letters which might be mistaken for or confused with the address assigned to said structure. I think that's pretty clear. C, each principal building shall display the address assigned to the frontage on which the front entrance is located in case a principal building is occupied by more than one business or family dwelling unit. Each separate front entrance of that structure shall display a separate number or letter designation. I guess that makes sense. D, numerals and letters indicating the official address for each principal building or each front shall be posted in a manner as is legible and distinguishable from the roadway. Numerals and letters shall be painted or applied with a contrasting color to the background. Numerals and letters shall be not less than 3 inches in height, excuse me, and not less than 3/8 of an inch in stroke width. Numerals and letters shall be reflective white and shall be applied to a reflective green background having minimum dimensions of 4 inches by 15 inches. Numerals and letters and background shall have the same reflectivity specifications as the existing county rural reference numbering system. I guess that's okay the way that is. 1289, new structures. Addresses will be assigned by the 911 Emergency Telephone Service Board or representative. Every time a new house gets built, the owner comes to you and asks for their address.
As long as they're in unincorporated areas of this county. Anything that is in a village or town or city is the responsibility of the village or city.
Okay? Didn't realize you had people coming over to get that information from you.
On the regular.
No certificate of occupancy will be issued for any principal building until the owner or developer has procured this official address of the premises as required in section 12-88. Is the zoning office doing this?
I believe, we'd have to confirm with Julie, but I believe so.
This is also aided and abetted by a lot of our utility services. Nicor, Eastern Illini, they are pushing very heavily for a 911 address when a new building has been created. So this is, they want that 911 address on there too, so they have that coordinated directly.
I hardly agree with that. I just want to make sure that we got a procedure here where they have to come to you to get the address. They must get some paper or something from you to prove it, because then when they go to the zoning department to get a occupancy permit, they must have to show that and satisfy them before they can get an occupancy permit. I just want to make sure that's what we're doing.
When the 911 address is generated, procedurally, I give the zoning and planning office a copy of that 911 address, so it goes into the card.
So we already have it when the owner comes in and get an occupancy permit.
In most cases. Then we'd go to, if somebody was doing something out of order, then that would go back to what Leo was just saying, we'd have to confirm that with this fellow.
Okay. Well, here to section 12-90, penalties. In the event that the owner, occupant, or person in charge of any house or building refuses to comply within 60 days of a written warning in violation under the terms of this division shall be punished by a fine of up to $250. Is that fine adequate? $10 years ago, we want to be with there.
$250 fine, somebody was found to refuse to put up a sign for address variance.
He might add that if he refuses, that he, next time he's been cited to be additional charge higher than $250.
It says if you give them a written warning, they got 60 days to do it.
But if he doesn't,
If they don't do it.
next would be jumped at $500 the first warning or something.
That works.
That makes sense?
Whatever, I mean, it's your benefit to have that number up there,
Yeah.
otherwise emergency services can't find you.
So,
It's up to them after you send them one address, they come back to that. So
You're dealing with procrastination, I'm not sure. I mean, that's.
I mean, people don't listen. Sometimes at first I think that's a bit to be us.
Exactly. I guess.
At least it may be.
Yeah, Sheriff, what do we got to, pay an officer to go out there if somebody does not do this?
How much would it cost?
Yes. 75,000, so it's like back, it's 150. It's up to you guys. I'm fine as long as it's, I want to make sure that it's covered.
So you want to leave it at 250?
Well, it's only $150, I have to go out and come back. If you want to go up more, you can go up more, I just want to make sure it's covered. I think it's their loss, they're not doing it.
Well,
This
since
day and
if you
age, I
don't
don't
comply with
know.
the law, it's gonna be your loss, whatever the circumstances are. you know.
Do we know how long it takes to get new signs made anymore? A lot of stuff that is taking longer than it used to. Everything you consider.
I would hazard a guess within a couple of weeks. To date, thus far, in the time that I've been working here, I've not received a complaint or anybody that was rigidly stating that they would not do it. Now, that likelihood is not zero. We would kind of back that around back here as you were in your discussion. While it's not zero, for the most part, I've got pretty good compliance in reality to get this job. Especially when you're dealing with new homes and that, it's kind of the cost of doing business and moving along in your home ownership. If you would want to jump it up, I'd probably say, because this was done in 1982, so 41 to 2-ish years ago.
This was approved 10 years ago in 2014, the code book was, so at that time, $250 should have been adequate then. If it wasn't, it was the fault of the county board for not taking action.
I would say if you're gonna bump it up, you probably want to double it at this point based on inflation and everything else. I mean, if they're not gonna pay $250, they're probably not gonna pay $500 either.
How much does it cost to get one of these signs made?
I do not know their cost.
That changes, probably goes up every.
Want to make it 250 or you want to?
I'm fine with it.
David?
Okay, we'll leave it. Last paragraph says county state's attorney may bring an action in the name of the county to enforce, restrain, or prevent a violation of any provision of the provision. If that's okay, that's all we have for that section. Yes, we have various sections that get completed yet, and I will be in contact with some of the different individuals to see what might be available. This month we have health department and food service, law enforcement, different things like that, so we'll work out where we go next month for wonderful project. Don't need to go into executive session today. Appointments will make at the board meeting. Correspondence, we got
Hey, we have to go into executive session.
what?
We have to go into executive session.
We do? Okay.
I'm sorry. Apologize. We're going to executive session 5 items.
I'm making the motion. 120-2-C1, the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or body.
Apologize.